Pablo Picasso, one of the most famous artists of the 20th century. Born in Spain in 1881, he is credited with inventing Cubism and spent most of his adult life in France. In today's episode of Fake Tank, we look at the life of the legendary Pablo Picasso. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fake Tank, where history and art collide. It is my job to bring you the most interesting stories from the past through the medium of art. And today we're looking at the life of the legendary Pablo Picasso. Picasso was born in Malaga, Spain in 1881. His father was an art teacher, and his mother was the daughter of a olive oil family. The family moved around quite a bit when Picasso was young. When he was 7, they settled in Barcelona, where he would live for 14 years. At age 13, Picasso had already mastered drawing and painting and even began to sell some of his artworks. As a teenager, he became interested in the ideas of the Enlightenment and began to take political art seriously. At 19, Picasso left home to move to Paris, which would be his home for the rest of his life. The subject of today's fake is one of the most important figures in modern Western art. He experimented with many styles over the course of his long life, but is probably best known for two periods. The first is the blue period between 1901 and 1904, characterized by paintings done in shades of blue and melancholy subjects. The second is the rose period between 1904 and 1906, when Picasso's work became brighter and more optimistic. But it was during this period that Picasso did some of his most shocking work, co-founding the Cubist movement and painting Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, widely considered to be the first truly modern painting. Though there are many examples of early Cubism attributed to Picasso, such as L'Osmanie, influenced by Johannes Vermeer, and Les Demoiselles d'Avignon is his magnum opus. This painting shocked the art world like nothing since the debut of Monet's Le Cerf. It broke every rule of classical painting and was scandalous. To begin with, it didn't resemble anything that viewers were used to seeing. Perspective, balance, realism, none of it applied. There was no attempt to make the figures attractive or appealing. These women were prostitutes, denizens of the seedy underbelly of Barcelona. In short, Cubism made the rules of composition and perspective optional. No longer would artists be shackled to the classical ideals of beauty. They could paint whatever they wanted, however they wanted. It was during the Rose period that Picasso met Georges Braque, who would be his partner in crime for this revolutionary new style. Together they developed the style over several months, though other artists were quick to jump on the bandwagon. Juan Gris, Fernando Jad, Albert Gleizes, and Henry Le Fauconnier all produced works considered to be part of the first Cubist movement. By 1910, the movement had begun to fade, but it wasn't long before Picasso would reinvent himself yet again. His next phase was the African-inspired work done between 1907 and 1912. During this time, he visited museums in Berlin and London, becoming enamored with tribal art. The Primitivism movement was born. Primitivism was a term coined by French art critic Paul Gilbert to describe the revolutionary new style. But it quickly became a dirty word as non-European artists were exploited and stereotyped. Picasso was heavily influenced by African sculpture, though he wasn't alone. Other Cubists and Post-Impressionists had also been exposed to tribal art through museum collections. Artists such as Paul Gauguin, for example, traveled to Oceania and brought back sculptures and art that would influence their work. With Picasso, however, it was different. He never traveled to Africa. Instead, he saw primitive art through European eyes. Despite this, his work during this period was incredibly influential and paved the way for surrealism and abstract art. Throughout Picasso's life, he would reinvent himself over and over again, sometimes dipping into various styles, but always experimenting and pushing boundaries. We can see this especially in the still lifes he painted throughout his career. Early on, his still lifes were highly realistic. As his style changed, so did the way he portrayed fruit and flowers. But perhaps most interesting is his later work, particularly still life with a guitar. During his final period, surrealism infused cubism resulting in some stunningly original work. What makes this painting so intriguing is the way Picasso manipulates our expectations. He places familiar objects such as a guitar and a wine bottle and challenges our perception of them. For example, the neck of the bottle becomes the handle of a teapot. The strings of the guitar become a curtain. This manipulation forces us to look beyond the obvious and to consider how objects can be perceived in different ways. The result is a painting that is both thought-provoking and visually stunning. After the rise of fascism in Europe, Picasso fled to America. He returned to Europe after the war, settling permanently in France. In 1945, he helped found the anti-fascist cultural organization, the International des Artistes, which aimed to foster international cultural cooperation. Over the last 15 years of his life, he worked prolifically, completing several major projects, including a series of etchings based on the Greek epic poem The Odyssey, as well as murals for UNESCO in Paris. Picasso died in 1973 at the age of 92. On the day of his death, a black veil of mourning was hung over Paris. He left behind a staggering legacy, having created more than 50,000 artworks, including nearly 1,500 sculptures, 10,000 ceramics, and 200 illustrated books. His impact on the art world cannot be overstated. He was a true innovator who helped to shape the course of modern art. Picasso's work continues to inspire and amaze us today, and his legacy will continue to live on for generations to come.